Yes, in the Module 5, the legal issues, when you can lawfully release information involving an investigation, the only time you can lawfully release information is to law enforcement or to a district attorney when a criminal offense occurs. You don't have to release it if the sponsor tells you to do so. You should only release it to law enforcement or to a district attorney when a criminal offense occurs. So Module 6, Private Investigator 1, the topic was surveillance. Some of the questions on the quiz there was some difficulty with is the most common type of surveillance in the private investigator industry is covert surveillance. Some of you had mobile surveillance, but the most common is covert. The four main types of surveillance are covert, mixed, overt, and mobile surveillance, but covert is definitely the most common in the industry. Two techniques. This was a little confusing question. Two techniques to conduct surveillance: stationary and mobile. A camera and a digital recorder are not a technique, that's more equipment. So two different techniques to conduct surveillance are stationary and mobile surveillance. And the type of surveillance that is conducted when you're not trying to be observed. Definitely mobile surveillance. You don't want to be observed in a mobile surveillance. You have to blend in when you're following the subject. Module 7 of Private Investigator 1. This was all about report writing. So when you're looking at a report, which part of the report has a timeline of the events that took place through your investigation? The timeline of events, that's the body of your report. And sometimes they ask what the private investigator's first priority is. Your priority is the welfare and satisfaction of your client. You also have to make sure you are following all guidelines and laws, but the number one priority is the welfare and satisfaction of your client. I mean, the use of proper investigation techniques to make a case valid is important, but the number one important first priority is the welfare and satisfaction of your client. What should you always include in your notes on an investigation? You should always have the date, the time, and the place of occurrence. I know some of you had the date, time, and description of clothes you were wearing. You don't need the description of the clothes you are wearing in any of your reports. It's irrelevant. So just make sure you have the date, the time, and the place of occurrence in your notes. I've been on the stand hundreds of times in the courthouses, and they never asked, what I was wearing during a surveillance. What is the best feature of the private investigation report for a private investigator? The marketing potential of a great report, so the client will freely give an excellent reference to friends and will want to use the PI again, is the most important. What is one reason why witness preparation before a trial is important? One reason is the investigator will know what the witness will say and inform the lawyer. Most of all the other questions you guys did a great job on. So now we're going to go into Module 8, which is all about private investigator equipment. I know yesterday you guys were asking about DVD burners. This is an example of a DVD burner. If we did the class in the classroom, we would have had many examples of the type of equipment that we use, but unfortunately due to the COVID-19, the class was run online. But this is a Sony. You hook the camera right up to it. You can burn your DVDs to your clients, then upload them onto the internet. All right. So now when I pull up the module, let's see here. So back to module 8 with the equipment. This is my pen right here. This is actually surveillance equipment right here. I don't know if you can see the camera lens on top there. It's like a little circle. There it is. It takes full color, date, timestamp on there. Writes like a normal pen. You could be watching someone somewhere and pretend like you're writing, and it actually works pretty good. But the type of camera you would want to use if you need to conduct a surveillance on a subject working in a bar is a body-worn camera. This pen is a body-worn camera, and this is what you would want to use. The camcorder is not the answer. It is not wise to use smartphones over surveillance cameras while conducting the surveillance. That's true. You only want to use the smartphones if you are following someone on foot, or if you're in a location like a restaurant or a bar. Surveillance cameras are much better on a surveillance because you can zoom into the subject, get better features from a far distance. So it's always important to have the surveillance camera. But other than those questions there, you guys very well. As far as a review for the final exam, the next module, module 9, interviews. Yeah, so in interviews, it is vital that you interview witnesses and suspects to get a clear picture of your case. Not just the witnesses, you want to interview the witnesses and the suspects. And you know what, the things that discourage people from talking in an interview is when the interviewer is not listening to the interviewee. Always listen to the interviewee. That way you'll get the best results out of it. Those were the difficult questions you guys had on the quiz there. The next module is module 10, sources of information. All of this information that we're going over here on the quiz is going to be important in your final exam. Sources of information. So one of the topics was the open record law. And what the open record law is it's public access to government records. Sometimes when you're conducting these open searches, you need to search several courthouses in several counties because all the information is not available online. You saw how we used that Corey check for Duval County, how they have a plethora of information online. Other counties throughout the state of Florida are not like that, unfortunately, so you're going to have to visit the courthouse when you're doing your research. And the difference between the public and the private records is one is open to the public and the other one is sealed. That's it. That's the only difference between public and private records there. Computer and investigations, that was module 11. We talked about those programs that private investigators use, irbsearch.com, tracers.com, locateplus.com. Those are all subscription-based websites that private investigators use, and they're important to the day-to-day jobs that we do. I'm going to go over a couple of the questions that are the most important that you guys had a hard time with. That way you'll get them correct in the final exam. The percentage of human resource professionals admitted that they routinely check social media. Only 15% of the time. You would think the number would be higher than that. That's what the actual number was that was reported. And a good investigative tool for an investigator on the internet is LexisNexis. It's a great resource. And a lot of these private investigator database companies, they get their information from LexisNexis. That's one of their resources, as well as many other sources. And employers, investigators, they are now searching search engines such as Google and Yahoo, as well as social networking sites such as Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, when conducting background checks on the internet. So you always want to, be cautious of what you're posting on there to the public. It could affect you in your career later down the line. Tracers, information specialists aid private detective businesses and clients with due diligence, identity verification, and skip tracing. So they go over all of that. The Google Translate app allows you to conduct searches and lookups using only your voice. This can be a useful tool when your hands are occupied working other surveillance equipment. So this brings us to our last module for Private Investigator 1 class. The last module was Module 12, the restriction of records. One of the questions that everyone had a hard time was, before the enactment of the FOIA, the standard for accessing most government records was the right to know standard. And the correct answer is false on that one. The freedom to view records must be balanced with the right to privacy. So that is true. And the Freedom of Information Act, that was an act that was put in place to provide access to specific government records. And as far as credit reporting agencies, the three main credit reporting agencies are TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian. On a final note, it was great meeting all of you students. Thank you for taking Private Investigator 1. Hopefully we see you in Private Investigator 2, and one day you all become licensed private investigators. It's a great career, and I'm sure you would all enjoy it. But if anyone has any questions, feel free to email me, contact me after you take the course. If you have any other questions about the field of private investigators, make sure to send me an email or a call. And good luck on the final exam. Make sure you read over the Chapter 493 PDF. That's very important for the exam, as well as your license when you do go take the test to obtain your private investigator license. Thank you.